Hello guys, so in this particular video I will be talking about the WordPress database. Okay, so when you set up your WordPress, that setup includes setting up the database, and usually you just forget what's going on in the background and just hope that everything is going to be okay. But it is something, worth investing your time to actually try to understand the what is happening behind the scenes with regards to WordPress database. So the image I am opening here is actually on this page. Let's see. Yeah, it's on this codex.wordpress.org database underscore description. Here it is. Right, so I just opened it as an image here so that you can easily see, and also I've tried to zoom it in a little bit. So these are the tables that get created automatically when you install your fresh new WordPress. Of course, here they are starting with WP underscore. So when you are setting up your WordPress, you will be given opportunity to actually set up this prefix as well. The WP underscore is actually the default, and then these tables are going to be created in your WordPress. They are going to be created as MySQL or MariaDB database tables in your WordPress database that you'd have set up. And here all in all, these are 12 of them, and they have been 11 and then they changed to 12. I think relatively recent. I'm saying relatively recent because when it comes to databases, the database part of WordPress, really the changes are really slow. This is usually mostly because of the need for WordPress to be backward compatible, and the WordPress database, the database part of WordPress is actually something that is core, and you don't want that to be changing every now and again. Otherwise, we would have a lot of WordPress websites breaking. So this is the database, and besides these tables, plugins can also install their own tables in on top of the default WordPress tables. And I think we are going also to demonstrate how to actually create the our own table inside or among the default ones. So here I've noticed that they have arranged this diagram in a somehow weird way. It feels like this is the beginning of the databases, but I guess it made sense from the drawing perspective. But don't think that this is like where everything starts. Like if it helps you understand, you can do that. But I myself actually can start looking at this whole database from here, from WP terms, or even from users. From users. Where are the users? WP users here. I can start from users, or I can start from WP posts. Yeah, the post is actually like the central thing, because what is eventually seen on the website is actually what is stored inside the WP posts. But I feel like I'm running ahead here, so we are going to look at this to look at these tables one by one. So if I make a mistake and say these databases, please just correct it and move on as if I said these tables, because we are going to be talking about the tables, not databases. So inside WordPress, you actually have a single database and tables inside that single database. Of course, it is possible to set more than one database for your WordPress website. And if it's something that interests you, please just let me know, and we can also look at that in future. So here, I think I'm going to start looking at WP terms, or maybe let me come here. Let me actually start with WP posts. I know I said that I'm going to start looking at it from here. I don't know if I said it, but I'm remembering vividly actually pointing at WP terms as something that feels, like it's good to start it. But I'm going to start at WP posts, and these arrows here, they actually show the relationships between these tables. They show the relationships between these tables. So now WP posts is the table that is going to store your posts, right? Think of your posts, let's say a blog post, but it's not just posts only. Pages are stored here. So pages are going to be stored here. Things like menus are going to be stored here. Even revisions, they are going to be stored in here also, as well as what else? Even the attachments, right? The attachments, an entry for the attachment is going to be put here, even though the attachments would be saved somewhere else in the folder WP content, I think media, right? Inside the media library directory that is inside the WP content. That's where the real image or the real video is going to be saved. But there is an entry that is going to be put in here, and even your own custom posts, right? So when we think of this, it's actually the right time to think that every content in WordPress, right? Every content, right? Like a tangible thing, like first-class citizens, they are just posts, but those posts, they behave differently. Posts could feel like a page. A post could feel like a product. It could feel like a portfolio or something like that. Now, these posts, WP posts, would have these, columns. It has ID. Every post has ID. It has post author, which is an int, a big int. So this is going to be the author's ID, right? Author's ID, and this is going to be post date, when it was posted, date GMT. I think this is date in your local time, and then this is the GMT version of it. And post content, this is probably the longest column, the column that will have like the most. So it has long text. So the content that is inside your page, or the content that is inside your post, is going to be here. The title here, the excerpt, that short form of your content. It's called the excerpt. Is there also the post status, I think, whether it's published or not, and then ping status, the post password, the post name. Like most of these things, they are important. They're important internally, but most things you wouldn't find yourself actually thinking about them. Pinged, post modified, this could be important. And post modified GMT, post content filtered. I think then post content filtered, these maybe it's not useful in your day-to-day life, or maybe it is. Post parent, GUID. This one is actually useful for things like attachments. This one will have a URL to the media library, right? So this would be the URL. Let's say it's an image. This would be the pointer to the image resource. menu order. I think it has to do with when the post type is menu, right? Then this part here, post type, is what actually makes it very possible to put the type of content that I talked about all in WP posts. So it would have post type, and it could be post type page or post type portfolio or post type product, and then post MIME type. This is useful in attachments. Let's say an attachment can be a .png or a .mov or a .mp4, something like that. Those are MIME types. Then comment count, number of comments in a post, if comments are enabled for that particular type of post. Now you'd see the arrows. Now the arrows, which arrow should I start with? But before that, if you go to this page here, codex.wordpress.org/database description, if you go down here, you see that the tables are actually listed here, and the descriptions, and they have a description, so table name, the description, as well as where it's actually relevant, places that probably involves maybe editing or adding or deleting or accessing something that is inside that particular table. For example, here we go to our WP posts. This is WP posts, so this is the explanation. The core of the WordPress data is the posts. Like I was saying, that everything is a post in WordPress. Like everything that is really, how can I put it? Like all the first citizens are posts. It is stored in the WP posts table. Also, pages and navigation menu items are stored in this table, like I just said. So these are the parts that involve dealing with this table. Now, let's move on to a table that is related to posts. What makes sense to go next? I think it's the users, right? WP users. So a post is actually created by a user. That's why there's this relationship here. So there's the post author here. They indicated with red, right? So this red here, this post author, is actually an ID that references a user ID that is in WP users. So if you come here, the user will have an ID also. I think almost all tables, they are in this format, whereby there is a primary key that identifies each and every particular item. In this case, it's ID. So in some cases, it's just ID, and in some cases, it's something ID, right? So user login, that's the I think the email, the username. Yeah, the username, I think. Then user pass and user nice name, user email, and also user URL, and user registered. When was the user registered? And the activation key and the status, as well as display name. So these things are about the users. And then you'll see that the users are also related to something called WP user meta, right? In user meta, there is a user ID here as a foreign key pointing to WP users. So user meta, there's a meta key or meta value and the meta value. So user meta would be something like if you want to add extra information about the user, right? So that maybe you want to display it on the front end. Let's say, but by default, there are things that are there with the user. For example, nice name, activation key, right? You can put things like bio, right? You can put a key called bio, and then the value would be the bio of that particular user, right? When you want to put more information, more wheels to a user, you would use the WP user meta to do that, right? Of course, we are going to actually talk about how you deal with these tables, and in the description here they're actually mentioning like how you are dealing with these tables by default. So by the way, for the rest of the tables, you can just come here and see the descriptions. In case I jumped it, I didn't come here and maybe read the description for you and show you where it is being dealt with. Now, so here the user meta, so we have WP users and WP user meta. So I'm going to the description of that. WP users, we are our users. WP users, the list of users is maintained in the table WP users. So it's affected by administrator. Like if you go on your dashboard, if you look at administrator users, this part affects it. And WP user meta, let's go to it and see what they are saying. WP user meta, each user features information called the metadata or metadata, and it is stored in WP user meta, right? By default, you find this information under administration users, right? If you want to add your own and create places where you can actually edit that particular meta, you can go ahead and do that. It is straightforward, maybe not straightforward, but we are going to talk about how you deal with database, editing, how you deal with editing these database tables. Now, let's move on and we go on. So we're done with posts. Posts can have, users, and the users would have user meta. So I think that part makes sense. To me, it makes a lot of sense. And the post would also have things called post meta, just like user meta. They have an ID. It's meta ID in this case. I think there on user meta, they were also saying u meta ID. Interesting. Okay. But those are foreign keys actually. They're actually the ID that is the foreign key that identifies each and every entry in the table. Now, this one with red is the foreign key. So the posts meta has a foreign key pointing back to posts. So this would point to an ID of a post. So this is actually called custom fields. These are called custom fields for posts. So if you create your post, you can give it a custom field whereby, let's say it can be price, right? You give it a price that would be meta key price, and meta value, it would be like $55, right? You can make it such that someone who edits the website can actually add the value, change it from $55 to $40 if it's a sale or something like that, right? So these are custom fields. And if we go to WP post meta here in the description, WP post meta here in description, each post features information called the metadata, and it is stored in the WP post meta. Some plugins may add their own information to this table, right? I think this statement is correct for all the tables, if I'm not mistaken. Plugins can actually add their own information in any of these tables. That's what I think. And then something that is related to posts is WP term relationship. This one, I think we need to go slow on this one because it's a little bit tricky to wrap your head around. I would say let's leave it for a while. Let's leave this part for a while, and maybe let's do this that is alone. Nah, let's leave it for a while also, and go to something that is also related to posts in some way, WP posts in some way, but they are really related to actually users. So these are WP comments. These are comments. Okay. So comments would have a user ID as the foreign key, and they will have their own comment ID to identify them. They also have comment post ID. So this ID is for a post, right? Then they have comment author email, comment author URL, comment author IP, comment author date. You might be wondering, like, why would we have things like comment author and comment author email, yet we already have these here? Sometimes someone can actually leave a comment without logging in. So if they are not logged in, these are actually the ones that are used. Then we have comment content, the real comment, and then comment karma. So you need to read further on these ones. These are things that I don't care much about, but they are there. Comment approved, is it approved or not? Comment agent, comment type, please go ahead and look at this, and comment parent, as well as user ID. So the important part here is that these are comments. This is a table for comments, and they have a foreign key which leads to users. So a user who is actually signed in, logged in, would actually be identified from here, and then we know that, okay, that's the guy or girl who created the comment. And a comment is identified by the comment ID primary key. If we go here, I think I want to show you something that is also interesting, and something that you might need to go ahead and look deeper into. So we have we're talking about comments. These are comments. So the comments within WordPress are stored in the WP comments table. So these are the parts of the WordPress administration that are involved with comments. So if you click this one here, you'll see that you go to the table, and they are sort of describing the table. What is there? The columns, what are they? What do they have? What would they have? So we have comment ID. It's a big int, unsigned. It's the primary key, and it auto increments. You don't need to fill in this one, because it increments on its own. So this is the case with the rest of the tables. Actually, let's go back and I guess move on. And then the comments would have something called comment meta. So this is like, we have already come across meta twice. So meta would have these things. Really, they would have like the ID, and then also the key and the value, right? So this is how meta is. So like, this is like further information about the comment. I'm not sure how you would use this. Maybe you could put an icon. Could it be an icon and a comment? Could it be, what could it be? Color, right? And then maybe use that on your front end. Or maybe if a comment is too long, or maybe if a comment is maybe a commenter has been commenting a lot, and maybe you sort of give a comment this meta. It's like that, maybe it's highlighted or it's put on top or something like that. I think like what they do in YouTube, on YouTube, where there's a pinned comment or something like that. I think this meta key and meta value can be useful in implementing something like that. So we have comment ID. So this is the comment that the meta is associated with, right? So we're done with comments. So we're done with comments as well as users. So we're done with the right side here, and some other tables that are not related, that are not connected to any other table. I'm tempted again to look at them, but let's leave them for a while, and let's actually leave them for last and go to this part here. I feel this part is actually the most confusing part, but if you grasp it well, it won't be confusing for you. So we know that these posts, they have like categories and tags, right? This is actually the part that talks about that. And of course, you can have custom of those. Instead of categories or tags, you can have, let's say, type. If you want, you can call them type, or maybe maybe series or something like that. And then you'd give them a specific series, like you would give them you give them specific terms, like you would give terms to categories. A category could be pets, it could be cars, it could be general, right? I don't know if that's a category. And then so let's talk about it. And where should we really start? I think we need to start, we can start here on WP terms. So a term is, a single category, for example, or a single tag. Let's go to the description here and see what they say. Maybe we can get a better way to actually express it. So WP terms, the categories for both posts and links, and the categories for both posts and links, and the tags for posts are found within the WP terms. Yeah. So these are the parts that actually affect this table. So they're saying the categories are actually here. Let's say we have a category called cows, it will be here. Let's say we have a tag called northern or southern, it will be here also. And then let's say we have our own custom. These are actually called taxonomies. These ones, they're called taxonomies. We can have our own custom one. Let's say we call it a series. And then we have a series called Hararian, or one called Malawian. I hope I'm making sense with these, because taxonomies can be pretty difficult to understand. I hope you get the point. So taxonomies are like a way of classifications, really. They can be categories or they can be tags, right? And where it's, can we say it's tricky, really? So this categorization can be hierarchical or not. So these categories are actually hierarchical and the tags are not hierarchical. By that we mean that a categories can actually have can have parents and children and grandchildren, right? And even your custom ones, they can choose to actually follow how categories behave or how tags behave. Tags by default, they are actually for posts. I do not know if you can actually make tags work for pages also, right? For pages, I don't think it can work. I don't think it can work. But if you come up with your own custom tags, you can actually make them work in the default post types, right? I hope it makes sense there. Now let's move on. So these are the terms. So we now understand that the terms, single terms, really, those like the tangible things, right? Now those terms, they would have meta, right? We've come across meta a lot, so they would have term meta. Let's say we have a term called maybe it might help to also think of terms as categories, but they are more than that. As we already seen, they could be tags or custom taxonomies, but just for the matter of understanding, I'm going to loosely use terms as just categories. So let's say we have a category. That category would have would have metadata, right? It would have meta key and meta value. So let's say a category called birds would have, you know, meta key called, for example, birds image, and you put URL to the image, for example. The WP taxonomy is the right term instead of us just saying category, because it could be a tag, right? So those things are called taxonomy. Now the WP taxonomy is taking the term, is taking a term, right? And then saying that term is actually a tag or a category. That's where the WP taxonomy table comes in. So we have the term taxonomy ID, right? This is one table that doesn't have primary key, right? So I think the better way of describing this table would be to say this table not maps, but rather describes a taxonomy. It describes a taxonomy that is associated with what? With a term. Okay, I don't know if that's making sense. Let's try to go back to the description, the official description. It's term taxonomy. This table describes the taxonomy, category, link, or tag for the entries in the WP terms, right? This is a very good explanation, I think. So it describes if it's a category or a tag, and there's another one, a link, right? So it sort of like describes. So we can see that it has a term. The term, it takes the term, let's say it's birds, right? It takes it, and then it tells that what taxonomy is it. This is varchar, so it's actually a word. So it would say it's a category, for example, and then this is the long description. Then if you try to edit your categories, you see that there is, if you try to edit a single category, you see that there is actually a description for the category. So this is where it comes. Then there's parent. Parent is useful when the taxonomy is hierarchical, just like category, as I mentioned some moments ago. And then we have the count. The count, I'm not certain about this one. You can go ahead and look further on this one. I don't know, do these descriptions mention this? WP term taxonomy is here. Count, big int, they did not say much, but I think if you look around, you'll understand what it's for. And of course also going into the real database and looking into it would be really you look into the database and see what is in there. You know, that would be a way to learn also. Now we move on to the next one. The next one is what? So we have WP term, we're done with that. WP terms, term meta, we're done. Terms, we're done. WP term taxonomy, we're done. Now we have that one, WP term relationships. So this is now going to give us the relationship between what we have been talking here, the tags and the categories, how they relate to the posts, right? So the object ID, this is the ID of a post or a page, right? So this is the ID of a post, because as we said that these things are all posts. ID of a post is going to be here, and then term taxonomy ID. this is going to be the primary key of this part of this table. I mean, is the ID for the combination of, yeah, you see term taxonomy ID, right? It's here again, term taxonomy ID. That combination here, that combination, it actually comes here, is the primary key here, not here. So the primary key issue I was complaining about here, it actually takes place here. So it's like this one here, which shows the relationship between a term, whether it's a category. It shows whether a term is a category or is a tag, right? That combination, a term is a category or a term is a tag, is going to come here and be related to posts, right? Makes sense? So this is something that you might want to rewatch and, you know, tinker around in the real tables in your WordPress installation and see how it feels like, right? And then finally we go to the tables that do not have any connection with any other table. So we have this one, WP options. These are the options: option name, option value, and auto load, right? So it's an option that has a name and a value, so it's a key value pair. And then auto load, you can look this up. I think it has to do with whether the option is automatically activated when the WordPress loads or not. I'm not certain. You need to go ahead and look that up. And then we have WP links. This is a legacy table. Like I said, that WordPress is really big on backward compatibility. So this is not something that you should be concerned with much, but it is something that is there in WordPress. And if we go to the description, I think we can suffice with the official one. I am not going to describe anything more than just what is there. The WP links holds information related to the links entered into the links feature of WordPress. This feature has been deprecated but can be re-enabled with Links Manager plugin. Right, you can just go ahead and look at the Links Manager plugin and, you know, tinker around, see what breaks and what doesn't. And I think that is all